If you Google terms like celebrity, advertisement, trust, and credibility, most of what you'll find is opinion pieces and studies trying to prove why advertisement with celebrities doesn't work, because people fundamentally don't trust these ads. If you add Huawei to your search terms though, you'll also find that the company doesn't seem to listen to the advice. I'm Martin from TechAltar, you're watching the 30-second episode of the Story Behind series, and let me explain why. So Huawei has one of the largest portfolios of celebrity endorsements ever. Wonder Woman Gal Gadot herself is the Chief Experience Officer, and if you're a little confused by the title, don't worry, it's corporate speak for we paid her to say nice things about us. Before that, Scarlett Johansson and Superman Henry Cavill were the faces of the Huawei P9, supermodel Karlie Kloss was everywhere promoting the Huawei watch, and even before that, footballer superstar Lionel Messi promoted phones like the Huawei Mate 8. There are many others too, but these are all tier 1 celebrities, and Huawei couldn't have found anyone much more expensive to make ads with even if they tried. And here's why that seems a little confusing at first. According to market researchers at Comres, only 17% of British adults found celebrity endorsements a trustworthy source of information, which was by far the lowest score compared to the other scores they measured. I gave the same question to my subscribers in a little poll on YouTube, and you people brought that number down all the way to 3%. Good job, everyone. And to top it off, market researchers at Collective Bias also found that only 3% of consumers claimed to consider buying a product because it was recommended by a celebrity. And I mean, none of this should come as a surprise, right? We all know that celebrities just say whatever the hell they're paid to say. And yet, here we are, stuck with ads that, according to the internet and according to common sense, just shouldn't work. But for Huawei, they do. And to understand why, let's put Huawei into context a little. Founded in 1987 in China, Huawei first became successful by manufacturing telecommunications equipment like network switches and routers, and to this day, it is one of the dominant players in this field, serving internet providers and mobile carriers around the world from China to Europe and even Australia. Strong and existing business relationships with mobile carriers ended up being the perfect sales channel to bring Huawei branded phones to the market, especially in Western countries where most people buy phones from their carriers. I mean, Huawei was supplying carriers with all their networking hardware anyway, so they might as well just start selling Huawei phones too, right? Convenient. But at the same time, Huawei had an uphill battle to fight. Back in the early days, their phones were simply put bad. I had a Huawei phone in 2011 when I was a student in China, and let me tell you, it was absolute garbage. Even my Chinese friends told me that it was a poor man's phone. And then there was the brand. Huawei is one of the only consumer-facing brands from China with big international ambitions that openly embraces being Chinese. Unlike most others like Lenovo, DJI, Oppo, and OnePlus, which all sound and feel somehow, international, Huawei has a distinctly Chinese name and a 100% Chinese upper management team and board of directors. It is notorious for having Chinese expats in senior positions abroad instead of hiring local people, and it has a long history with the Chinese government. The founder of Huawei, Zheng Zhengfei, came from the Chinese military. Huawei had multiple joint ventures with the government, built most of the telecommunications network for the People's Liberation Army, was promoted as a national champion by the government, and routinely builds networks for foreign countries, especially around Africa, as a part of China's foreign policy initiatives. In other words, Huawei is as close to the Chinese government and China as a theoretically privately owned company can be. Now, I leave it up to you to decide if that is a good or a bad thing, but it certainly makes things harder for a company that is trying to establish a new consumer brand in the West. The country brand of China isn't the greatest. Now, if you don't know, at least in this context, country brand means the intrinsic values that consumers attach to a company or a brand just for being from a specific country. You know, food from Italy is probably tasty, cars from Japan are probably reliable, craftsmanship from Switzerland is probably excellent, and so on. Until recently, China's country brand has been perceived as low quality, copycat products, possibly with privacy concerns. And I'm not saying that these are correct, but they are the assumptions that people have. Generally not a very positive country brand, which is why the others usually avoid appearing too Chinese and choose to build an international sounding brand instead. Huawei, for whatever reasons though, just decided to embrace it, which directly leads to a few branding challenges. The first goal of any brand is to be memorable. After all, if you don't remember it, what is the point? And as it turns out, Huawei as a name is a little hard for people outside of China to wrap their heads around. Fun fact, there are multiple videos from foreign branches of the company trying to correct people's hilarious pronunciations.
Huawei?
Huawei?
Huawei.
Hawaii.
And best of all is that in all of those videos, the hosts themselves mispronounce the name of their company too.
It's actually pronounced Huawei.
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 No, it's not actually Huawei because the H is pronounced pretty clearly in Mandarin Chinese, so the correct pronunciation would be Huawei. So good job on getting your own brand name wrong. But let's also take a look at this gem from the South African team.
So because we can't say the word, we decided to learn through sounds. Using everyday and not so everyday objects.
Okay, no wonder that most people I know who aren't phone nerds are completely confused by the name. And while all of that is genuinely funny, it does highlight how being memorable is a challenge for a Chinese brand like Huawei. The second goal of a brand is to evoke a sense of familiarity. Why? Because evolution has taught us to trust things that are familiar. Stuff and people you have had around you for a long time hasn't killed you so far, so they're probably safe. But everything new and unfamiliar could be a source of danger, so we subconsciously dislike and distrust it. This is why we all seem to think that our own country, our own religion, and our own mom's cooking is the best there is in the world. And it is also why American ads can feel like a diversity competition sometimes. All the skin colors must be represented. If my brain identifies someone in the ad that looks like me, it subconsciously puts me into a state of cognitive ease. If you want to know more about this topic, there's a video going into much more detail in the description of this video. But long story short, Huawei, by virtue of being so very Chinese, feels foreign and not familiar to most people in the West. And the third and last real goal of a brand is to promote something positive about a company. And once again, when Huawei entered the consumer market, all it conveyed to people was that it was a Chinese phone maker. And given China's country brand, that wasn't exactly positive. So Huawei at first had good sales channels, but weak products and a weak brand. You know what they had though? Money and big ambitions. First, they had a gigantic and very profitable existing business selling networking equipment. And second, they reportedly also have very generous support from the Chinese government because of how the government sees Huawei as instrumental for building China's country brand and soft power abroad. So when a company has so much money, ambition, and the backing of a giant government, being cost-effective just isn't necessarily the goal. Having the biggest possible impact and the fastest possible growth is. Which conveniently brings us to celebrity endorsements. They are not cost-effective. That is what all these blogs and surveys bemoan. If you are a lean startup or a super efficient corporation with low margins, maybe don't use them. But despite what the surveys say, they are ultimately still effective. See, these numbers on the internet are misleading because they're all self-reported. The problem with advertisement is that we all think it doesn't affect us, when in reality it does. When we see an ad with a celebrity, we might not drop all of our things and run to a store to buy a phone, but it does manipulate our minds in a couple of important ways that Huawei needs it to. First, it makes a brand or a product more memorable. People won't remember a Chinese name by itself, but they will remember the face of a celebrity. So Huawei can simply put, buy memorability. Second is familiarity. Remember, people don't tend to trust foreign stuff. Slap a few familiar faces on the products though, and people will be like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with this person, so by extension, I'm comfortable with this brand now too. That's cognitive easing at work. And third is positive brand associations. And it is proven that people subconsciously associate perceived qualities of a celebrity with the brand they promote. So once again, celebrities for the rescue. In other words, celebrities are the perfect solution to Huawei's original branding problems. But an improved brand doesn't sell products by itself, so Huawei also spent an enormous amount of money making their phones much better than they were, and they of course also have a bunch of other marketing activities. So while celebrity endorsements might not be very cost-effective, for a company like Huawei that has more money and bigger branding challenges than most of its competitors, it might be the right first step. Alright, so how do you feel about celebrity endorsements now? There's a Twitter poll which you can find in the description of this video, so cast your vote over there. Tweet at me because I love reading all of your tweets. If you want to see more videos like this one, then binge watch previous episodes over here and subscribe to future episodes over here. And I might have something very exciting to announce very soon, so stay tuned. Bye!